Bruchim Abon, like we'd like to welcome the ganze Welt to today's shir. Yoin Beis, the Hamoed Pesach Tafshin Pei. Today's shir was sponsored by Rabbi Avram Spry from Easy Plumbing. Hashem should help him, should have Arichos Yomim with health, wealth, Simcha and Achas. Today we have the covet to have Rabbi Smishli.
Rabbi always told us that this year on Yom Tov Chol Hamoed, you have to make sure it's a Gishmak Yashir. Because really the Shaila of Lachem, Lashem, if you give a Gishmak Yashir, so it's Lachem and Lashem. I just hope you enjoyed this year as much as I did, the Teichen of it. It's a different type of sugya, it's a Berad Mechaveiroi, in Halacha, perhaps. But more specifically, I'll tell you some shah that we began with. Someone who was attending a shir for many years, and he felt that he could do better learning on his own. But if he stops going to the shir, the Rav, the Maggid Shir will feel very bad. Does he have to continue going, or is it Chayecha Koidman? Kamocha, Chayecha Koidman. Of course, in a yeshiva, there's a Bezgeres. I'm talking about a boss that has the ability to make his own decision. In the yeshiva, there's a question: if you have a chavrusa, and he's not good, and you think you can do better, can you quote drop him? I don't like the Halacha, you don't drop a human being, the Ben Torah, but can you, change chavrusas? A bacha wants to get up early in the morning in the dorm room, and he, likes to learn, but he wakes up all his roommates. Is that so pasha that it's muta? He's sharing someone else, but chayecha koidmin. Of course, the shaila of all shailas, during the winter or summer, some bachim are always schwitzing, or some yidden are always hot. They open the window, and someone else closes it, and it goes back and forth. And these are just a few of the many shailas that really, I think, the nekuda, the longest of the shaila is, every yid knows, the after Kamocha, Zek Halagokal B'Torah, Zeh Shteit Yishalmi, Yadar, and Perites, Bois Gimel. In Bavli we find the similar Lashon, Shabbos Laminav, the Allah Sani L'Chavrach Lo Yisab, Zeh Kol HaTorah Kula, and Kleinigkeit Mitzayah, another yid, that's mamish our Kol HaTorah Kula. But then again, we do know that there's a concept of chayecha koidem. When does that apply? And how do you decide which has priority? So the emphasis is that this is a sugya, like all of the sugyas, you have to learn it properly and slowly. The Torah Kedosha tells you have to racha kamocha. But there's something that seems to be very unattainable in those words. Frag the Heilige Ramban, that's an aflaga. Because a person cannot be expected to love another yid as much as he loves himself. Zok Ramban al Torah, kasha number one, it doesn't seem to be possible. It can't be literal. But there's a much stronger kasha. Let's say someone only has one pair of shoes, and his friend has no shoes. Does he have to give his shoes to his friend because we'll soon see that's a Gemara in Bava Metzia Samach Beis. The Gemara is talking about a much more serious question, where two people are going by derech, and only one has a jug of water, and it seems that it's other. Either he drinks the water and he survives and his friend dies, or fakir. Zok the Gemara Ben Petura says, Mutter sheishtu shtei. The Haftach Kamoich is such a compelling chiyuv, you can't favor yourself over your friend. So that means ad kedei pekuach nefesh, you have to give up the water. L'chayra, you have to give up the shoes also. Ad sheba Rabbi Kiva, and he darshened chayecha koidmin. Chayecha chiva, chayecha koidmin. Frek the Ramban, wait a second. If you learn Kamocha is literally, the Rabbi Kiva doesn't stim. Because Rabbi Kiva is the same Rabbi Kiva that says in Bava Metzia Samach Beis, Chayecha Koidem. So it's a stim Rabbi Kiva, and it's also a question of Avane, what does it mean Kamocha? So it's noteworthy that you see this from a different angle. It's talking about after Kamocha, and I'm mentioning this, I would be remiss. Whenever I learn a sugya, I like to go from the beginning. There's a pasuk, certainly from all the Gemaras. Did you ever wonder, what is the sugin halacha of after Kamocha? This is not a Musa shmuz. I'm not giving Musa, this is not a Musa shmuz. What's the halachas of it? In other words, if you want to talk about Esdei Chalaisa say, so there's a Gemara. You want to talk about all these different Oivel Asiyasa, there's a Gemara. What are the halachas in Shas regarding Abbas Yisrael? So I made a collection, and it's Mabel on the Ryan. It speaks volumes. There are 6 Gemaras in Shas, actually 8, we'll get to the last 2 soon, but 6 Gemaras in Shas. The Tzad HaShavah is all how to give Misas Bezdin to a Russian. Now let me remind you what the Mishnah says in Makis. Someone to get Misas Bezdin, it was once in 7 years or 70 years, or it's impossible, because to someone to get Misas Bezdin, he has to be a Russian with the Ganzkeit. Otherwise he has to get Misas Bezdin. So on Sanhedrin Memhei, it's also about a common Nun Aleph. How do you make the Beis Haskila? If you make it a little too low and he suffers a little extra, you have to Recha Kamocha. Here you have a person that literally, Kepshuta, a mitzvah, Emsa Bagrabin. I'm sure we have a new mitzvah there, right? This is the real thing. How to give skila. In Soita, Dafches, don't give extra bizoyin. Forget about giving him torture. Don't be mavazim, achutasai more than he deserves. Psachim ayin hey. The more matazich, how do you get the mis of sreifa? Doesn't mean burning him literally. Because the Torah says, Re'ach Kamocha. And Ksubas Daflamet Zayin, how to give Saif. An unbelievable insight. V'haftiach Kamocha means Tracht. But we must say Tracht von Yenem. But nicht der Yenem von Arosha Merusha. 3 out of the 4 Mises Bezdin is the mitzvah V'haftiach Kamocha. Kolshkin your Charusa, Kolshkin your spouse, Kolshkin your neighbor. So that's part of a different shmooze. Toisvis, on this Gemara in Sanhedrin Memhei, Toisvis bothered. What's going on here? The whole Sugya After Kamocha is talking about Mises Bezdin. So Toisvis in a few words, and you can miss it if you learn too quickly. V'yesh mefarshim mishum doyach kamocha lo yishayich michayim the chayecha koyim. So Toisvis already asked the Kash the Ramban asked. It can't be chayecha. It can't be kamocha is literal because chayecha koyim. So therefore the Gemara has to go to 6 places in Shas regarding giving a Rosh and Mises Bezdin. So here we have Lamaisa Pliya. The Magen Avram writes in Simon Memvav, Ne'avdoma, that before you start davening, you should say, I'm in the Kabbalah, Alai, Mitzvahs, After Moicha. Now, if you did say it this morning or not, let me ask you a question. What does it mean? You want to do a mitzvah, what does it mean? Is it Kamocha? Is Chayecha Koibin? So the emes is the most positive pshat, and I found this Cheskuni on the Torah. He learns the pshat and the pasuk very simple. Kamocha is not an amount. It's not in the kamus. Kamocha is in the attitude. It's up there, just like you like when people do things nice to you, you should live the same way with Jen. Kamocha means an attitude. You understand that you appreciate when people are nice to you. Be'after kamocha means try to please Yen. Very simple pshat. Then I found, I guess more of a halachadik pshat, and I found this first in the Sefer Aksav HaKabbalah, a Helik Sefer from the Kamoinim, and we'll soon see it's really the Rishonim. And he says it's really kamocha is tak a shear in kamus. Let's say someone comes to Erev Yom Tov and he says, I need a favor, I need some time. I'm a little behind, maybe you can help me with a certain thing. So you say, it's Erev Yom Tov for you and for me also. I also have a family. That's a good excuse now. Erev Yom Tov person's busy. Zoktik Sava Kabbalah, you want to know the praba when you're mechuyev to help Yenem? What would you want if you need a favor? You need help, that's Erev Yom Tov for you. And you go over to your neighbor, and he says, I'm sorry, Erev Yom Tov. Would you be disappointed? Because you say, well, listen, what's a friend for? Oh, now, do the same to Yenem. And he says, Kamocha, and he writes in Yiddish, do what you would expect to do to someone else, that you should expect he should do to you, or vice versa. Someone asks you for a favor. How would you respond? How would you understand when you need a favor? And he says that's why it's very meduyek Kamocha. It's a sheer in the eichus of the mitzvah. You have to be reasonable.
But he has to himself.
There's always going to be a challenge. But for some reason, when we need the chesed, we don't understand why can a yid go the extra mile. Okay, that's your attitude.
No, but when I ask my friend, my neighbor, to do me a chesed,
right,
it's because I'm thinking about me, right? So
well,
I'm thinking
guess
about
what?
Me.
That's what there's. Don't think about me.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Kamocha, don't think about me.
No.
Put yourself in the equation. You know what I'll tell you? You know what it is? I'll put it very bluntly. If you have one pair of shoes, keep things under hate. The Torah's chayiv is put yourself in his shoes.
Right, but
don't give him your shoes. Put yourself in his shoes.
He said he has his own family. So the tribe is, should I give up time away from my family?
Whatever you would expect him to do to you, you have to do to him. Okay? I think it's very fair. All of a sudden, things seem more understandable. Doik for Tishkach, it doesn't fail. It's really what we know Kamocha, B'Avdech Kamocha really means. That's what he wants to say. Now, but I want to just add to that the Chayvus Alavavas and Cheshbon HaNefesh, Gimel Chabeis, Sheyev Lehem Ma Sheyev Lenafshei Mehem. It's one of the Mishnayim, don't forget. And the Ramban in Chas Avel, Perik Yudalid, Halacha Chaf, Chol, this is Lashon the Rambam, Kol Dvarm She'at Deroitze Sheyasa Oisam L'cha, Acherim, Asei Ata Oischa, Lachecha, B'Torah Mitzvahs. It's a sheer in the eichus or the kamas of the mitzvah. Now, Lamaisa, this makes it very workable and very doable. And the emes is that I think this is more than just a practical eitzah. You see, the problem is a person by nature. That's where the Rashbam created human beings. We are stickle anoichi. We are stickle, a person living himself. Shimon and the Akdama to Shari Yosh, the beautiful Akdama to see. He says that anila atzmi mo'ani. When a person's living just me, mo'ani, what kind of pitiful existence is that? That's your whole extent of your life. The yisoid of Havas Yisrael is break the anoichi. I guess we could say, break the anila atzmi mo'ani and put in a Chaim Volozhin's heilige Werte, kizeh kol adam loyla atzmoi nivra. It's the two different sides of the spectrum. Don't live ani, live kamoicha. Once a person is thinking of Yenim, once the other person's on the map, already Havas Yisrael comes. The problem is he's so consumed with the Anoichi, that's the problem. We live in a world, this is the me generation. I once saw someone wearing a t-shirt, I love me. Better enough they think like that, but they're not embarrassed. But you have to break the me. The Anoichi, that's how you bring the taich. Anoichi, oimid bein Hashem uvein eichem. And every time you do a chesed, or you think of Yen, but that breaks away a little bit of the anoichis. The cheskuni, v'hafta, lasis loy toivik ma'ashat, like I told you, it's basically once you put yourself in his shoes, then the mitzvah flows much better. But Rabbi said there's probably much more to this question. And that is the famous Gemara that we all know. In Shabbos Lamed Aleph, the Goy came to Hillel. He said, teach me Kotar Kul Aregel Achas. So Hillel told him, now all the Mefarshim come out in Rashi, says, what is that? Loch Sani, it's a fancy term, but that's the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael. So the big kasha is that, talk straight. If you want to tell the guy, so say it. Yeshiva is a say not egin a chiddush. Reuven shemachal l'Shimon, and the guy writes, "Well, nira li b'derech shuad din Shimon shemachal l'Reuven." Go ahead, he got his chiddush in. So what Hillel was he making a chiddush? He just flipped over the words, he made it in the Ramish. The teretz is pashut. Hillel verstanden that even a Heilige Ramban can't understand Rabbi Yakov Zev. Kamocha? What are you people crazy? How's it shaykh? If the Ramban struggles with it, how's it going to understand it? So Hillel made it much more practical. And Hillel said, it's the attitude. Put yourself in his shoes. You know good well that when someone makes a joke, quote unquote, it hurts you. So why do you make a joke about Yen? Because what do you mean? I made people laugh. I got a mitzvah deraisa, I'm a sameach eden. When it comes to Yenim, you think the mitzvahs there differently. So I found this not only in a Marsha, in the back of the Gemara, and Maritz Chai is in the back of the Gemara. And it's interesting, Marsha learns this from the Smichas HaPsukim. Because it doesn't just say V'afreach Gemoicha. Loisika, Loisita, you have to ask the Moich. Zok the Marsha, it's Muchach from the Hemshech Apsukim that it's all in the Sur Meirah. Loisika, Loisita, Loisisna, Loisisna, and then after ask the Moich. Zok the Marsha, Muzayin, that even after ask the Moich is Beshlidi. So what's Shad? It's beautiful. The real mitzvah of Abbas Yisrael is like the goy, like the Hillel told the goy. That's not an afloga. That you gotta be careful. You know good and well that you're very sensitive, so why don't you think when you talk about Yena? And it's not just the Marshon Ametzchayis, the Targum Yonason of on the Pasik, the Min Ana Sagi and Sani Lecha Lo Yisabed Le. So you're going back to Tanoi, and one of the Rishonim, the Smag and Essay Test, Mitzvah After Moicha Klal Shel Dava. That is the klal of Yehavtarech Kamocha. And also, I found more recently, the Hilgah Chazanish, the Maisa Ish, Beis Kuf Samachvov, was asked, how does a person really properly fulfill Yehavtarech Kamocha? So the Chazanish said, the real klal is B'derech Shlili. So that gives a whole new shot. So Hillel, with Me'Rav Chachmasoi, put the halacha l'maisa. Avad Yehavtarech Kamocha is the Torah Kedosh's words. But the halacha l'maisa, the minimum chiyuv, is Allah Sani L'chavach Lo Yisabed. Now, l'maisa, I just want to add a point, which is pashit, but it has to be mentioned as we'll soon see, because there are many shahs that people misunderstand the point. Avad, that there's a mitzvah of, there's a pashit, it's a pasuk in the Torah, Chayecha Koidin. But that does not mean you have to think of yourself at the expense of yen. L'moshel, Minei Ubei. There's a ketan of one. Ruvain has a ketan of water, and Shimon has no water. Can Shimon say, "I'm not, I hate to do this, but I have to live"? And he snatches the ketan of mayim from Ruvain. Is that chayecha koyden? That's insanity. That's geneva. It's a ritzicha begrama. Chayecha koyden means when two people are equal in a matziv. And the shaila is, who goes first? Or you have the kita and you're not to give. But to do an avla as chayecha koyim, that's possible. But we could do much better. Bemis, it's a Gemara in Pesachim, another yisoid of Abbas Yisrael. In Pesachim Chafei, the famous Gemara that if they come over to a yid and says, listen, you better shoot someone or we're going to shoot you. What's the halacha? So the Gemara says, "My chazi l'damadi dach somaktvei." So Rashi says, and Rashi explains that you have to know with your own seichel. You can't kill someone else even to save your own life, and that's the big sugya of my chazis. How did that stem with chayecha koidmin? It's not a kasha in the first place, because to go do an avla to shoot someone else, that's not justifiable. You want to save your own life? Okay, so we'll go look for water. But to do it at someone else's expense, that's not Chayyim. That's a suffix of Ritzicha. Now, I saw B'Shem Reb Chaim Brisker. I can't say I heard of him, obviously, but this is what I heard. I saw B'Shmoy. If you look in Rashi, Rashi makes a point to say that there's no Gzeres HaKosiv of my chazis. There's a Gzeres HaKosiv, Yecha Koyim. But there's no Gzeres HaKosiv of my chazis. So Reb Chaim officially said the Rebbe Shalom wanted it should be a svar without Gzeres HaKosiv. It's so much pashit. If you have to, person has to take a bullet to his head and give up his life not to shoot Yemen. And it was Chayecha Koytman is dominant. But when it comes to doing something, it's so pashit on Gzeres HaKosiv. And Reb Chaim officially said, if they go and they say, go over to the biggest Gadol Hador, and they put a gun in his head and shoot, the biggest Amoritz in Brisk, they say. He had a brisk share Amoratzis, okay? So the Gadol Hador has a question, and we would say, my chazis is pretty obvious. I know, the Gadol Hador is bigger than Amoritz and Brisk. So Reb Chaim, the Rebbe Shalom wanted to be Poshet Kipshutoi, no matter who the big Gadol Hador is, my chazi, no one knows who's more chashiv. Azoi vayt gate to Kamocha in that respect, which speaks volumes of how you look at another yid. Gefel lacharim rekesech. We said this Pesach by night twice in Shir I feel reikam shebehem malay mitzvahs karima. No one knows what yenim is, But my point is, from this Gemara we see that Chayecha Koidin could very easily be misunderstood. Chayecha Koidin means you could be competitive and get what you need, but not at the expense of Yenim, even Ad Kidei Pekuach Nefesh, and it's not even Xeris HaKosim. It's a svar that overrides Chayecha Koidin mit Apashtis. So we have another pshat in Rabbi Yakov Zev, that's basically the Lochsani, the Sumeira. Then there's one more pshat, and that is the Chsam Soifa ala Torah, and it's also with the Chuvas, in Chosh Mishpat Sim Kuf Samach Daled. The Chsam Soifa says a bomba Chiddush, but he says it with the ganze Ganzkeit. So the Chsam Soifa, that be'emes in Chayi Nefesh in Gashmias, Avada Chayecha Koyim. That's Pasha. It's the Gemara, Samach Beis. When it comes to Ruchnias, to Torah, then there's no Chayecha Koyim. And that's the pshat v'hafta l'reyacha, kamocha, zeh klal gadol b'Torah. In other words, it's feidin. Gashmias, you go first. Torah, you don't go first. It's equal. Now that's in the, again, on the Chedushim al Torah, the Chayi Netzach, the Hainu Beliman HaTorah, Chayiv Lilmoid Lacher. Now, this is the Sam Soif al Torah. In the Tshuva, like I mentioned, in Choshen Mishpat, Simon Kuf Samadal, he was asked, beautiful tshuva, Rabbi, the responsibility of a Rav. So he says that basically, you have to be there at all times, willing to teach, because remember, Chayecha Koidmin does not apply in Limud HaTorah. And even though you lose your learning, you have to be there for your balabatim. And he says, Taka, but Chiyusai, Le'ishtai, Levana, when it comes to Gashmias, then Chayecha Koidmin. Now, this is the Chamsoy Peshita, and again, he said it, Lamaisa, not just in Drush, Al Torah, it's in the Chuvas. But as we understand, L'choyer in Svar, it is Zeh Shvetz Vashtein. Because we would say Ibcha Mistavra. We would say, Dalahin, Dalaher, Nakit Shmamahin, okay, you live without it. But Torah, this is my Shlichas, Chayecha Koyim, that's the battle cry of Ben Torah, I have to stay. And Taka Rav Moshe in the Ebenezer Dalet Simon Chavav Chamsoy Dibber Chamsoy Tmuah Ma'oid. He says, "Fakert Ibchem Estaven Seichel by Torah and mitzvahs. Avadacha, it should be more Chayecha Koyim." Now, Lemaisa, we'll soon see the Rav Moshe asked a big kasha on the Chsam Soifa, which can't be the Chsam Soifa didn't understand. But if you look at the Chsam Soifa on the Torah and the Chuvas, I found that 4 different times. He speaks about his Yisoid, and he never says Torah and mitzvahs. He repeatedly says Chayecha Koidmin does not apply to Torah. And that's because, as we'll soon see, there's a special thing by Torah, that since the whole Chefetz of Torah is the Siyata Deshmaya Gatu Matzasa, or we'll soon see based on a Medrash, but Torah, as we know, is a matana. No matter how big a Balkishin you are, that Slach of Torah is a matana. And there's a Tanai when a person is Zoyach to Torah, it has to be Lalacherim. So that's why the Chsam Soif is not such a bomba Chiddush. If you understand that Torah is a Matanim and a Shemayim, to those that are faithful, Gizbarim to the Bari Yolam to help others, it's not so shver. But in mitzvahs, Avada, the Chsam Soif is Moida. But Minei Ubei, we can also understand where the Chsam Soif is coming from. If Torah is a din of Siyata Deshmaya, then Torah Lamed Lacherim is Torah's Chesed Al L'Shoyim. But be that as it may, this is where the Chsam Soifa understood it, and that's where he found for the steamer. So it's not such a big kasha, the steamer. Now the Maisa, maybe we can understand a little more. Now they say the famous Maisa, the Rebbe, I think Rebbe Zisha, they said you will become Avraham Avinu, would you want that? So he said no. The Bersh will have one Zisha and one Avram, so what do I gain? See, if someone's living to the Bari Olam, so what's the difference to give Yenim the Ruchnis? I mean, I want to be, an Iva Siyoid, a Noichi. Okay? But if someone is really the Shem Shemayim, and there's X amount of Torah to have, so what's wrong with sharing with Yenim? So he'll be the Gal Hador. So that's probably where the Chsam also the understanding was, that in Ruchnis, if you think of Bari Olam, so who cares? Which Eved does this service? But the Maisa, this is the Chsam Soif's pshat. Now, the Chsam Soif, as I told you, was talking Halacha L'Maisa Mams, as I told you. One more pshat I want to mention, because I think it's an emes pshat. which is halacha l'maisa. Someone came, he was married a few weeks, and he said, I think I noticed that I think women spend more than men on clothing. I said, oh, I see you got married. So I said, but you should know, it's a Pharisee Gemara. Maybe it's a Pharisee Pasuk. What's the Gemara? The Gemara says, in Yevama Samach Beis, ha'oyev es ishtoi kigufoi, which is already a tall order, because it can be, l'chayra. Ha'machab de yoysim igufoi, Allah b'kasev oima, yadat shalom alecha, the whole Pasuk. So there are two chedushim here. First of all, we paskin, it's not shaykh kigufoi. We paskin, there's no kamocha halacha l'maisa. And here the Gemara is mechayev it. But the bigger chiddush, machab de yoysim igufa. You can design. Zok te marsha, what does mean machab de yoysim igufa? L'gabi malbushim. You have to be willing to spend for your wife more than for yourself, more than necessary, and that's the pshat in the machab de yoysim igufa. Now, l'maisa, we find the concept regarding a wife in halacha, epsik igufay. We find a mod nizach, because mitzvah begufay, there's no din of shlichus. When it comes to Ner Chanukah, Rashi says it, and all the Paisim say it, the din of ishtik gufa is not just she's yoitza with Ner Ishu Beisai. She's yoitza the gufa mitzvah. She's yoitza the mahadin, the husband's lighting, the wife's lighting, and vice versa. So there is a kegufay by an isha in halacha that's mamash kegufay. But the chiddush is machab the yoysa migufa. What's pshat? So here again, I think it lends itself to the emes in the pasuk. The word rayosi we find used today certainly. You read its imitation to Rashiva, Rab rayosi. What does that mean, rayosi? So in probably the past few hundred years ago, the word rayosi is a wife. Now the emes is, if you really go to the beginning, the shrosh from Tanakh, the word rayosi, reyacha, is not a wife, is a friend. You find in the Shir Hashirim, rayosi, or in Megillah, reyacha toiv mekah, but it's used very much as a wife. It's ganz yitachin that regarding a wife is more of a chiyuv, because l'maisa, that's mechab the yoysim miguf, that we see l'maisa. But more than that, be'ezah pella, I told you 6 Gemaras regarding Dal Mrs. Bezdin. There are 2 other Gemaras, the Sugi B'ach B'ach Kamocha. Kedushin Mem Aleph is talking about a Frima Bachar, a Heilige Bachar. And he wants to not even go out. Go out, go in, none of the above, not even going in. He's going to marry a blind date, he'll make a leap of faith and get it. So the Gemara, you can't do it. Tzadikal, you can't do it. Shem a year b'dav megona, b'tayra amra, and what's the next word? Ma'afteach kamoicha. The Gemara Nida, the end of Shas, Taf Yud Zayin, about relationship and by day. Shem a year b'dav megona, Rachman am ma'afteach kamoicha. You're the Torah the Soif Daita. Where did the Torah give the mitzvah after Kamocha? 6 places in Shas how to give a Rosh and Mises Bezdin, and the Havdil Elef Alfi Avdolis in your own house. Because at home you're not getting honored by your wife. You're not getting no one writing a book about you at home. People are very nice outside, but at home, whatever it is, Tavla Mesav Tando, whatever I am, I'm good. Chas v'shalom. It starts with the wife. But if you learn that, then maybe we could say, but there we have to Now you think, who gives me the right to say that? He's a friend, so not so schwer. You ever wonder, 6th place in Shach, is going on a Rasha that's getting Mises Bezdin. He's not Oysa Maisa Amcha, right? What does it mean? How could it be going on a Rasha after Kamocha? Zok the Yad Ramah, one of the Rishonim in Sanhedrin Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis, the Yesh Tefar v'Haftel Reyacha is in the lashon of Rasha B'cha. The worst of Klal Yisrael, you have the mitzvah Avos Yisrael. I'm not comparing the worst of Klal Yisrael to one's wife, but once you're saying Drush already, v'Haftel Reyacha, especially in our time that the word Rayosi means a wife, it's like the Arizal said, when a person comes to the NFL and they're going to give them the cheshbon, and you see they're not giving too much schar for chesed. But what happened to all my chesed? He goes, no. Chesed in Yenim Welt starts at home. If you were good at home, you get credit, full credit for you do by Yenim. If something's lacking at home, if there's no Kamocha, then there's something wrong with the Chesed. It definitely has a little of a truth to it. But the holidays, you should know this, that the positive Pshat B'Af Kamocha is going on a wife more than anybody else. And I would add, the seventh place, the ninth place, I should say, in Shas, is Ben Maushi Yaki's Dom La'aviv. Could a son of a doctor, very common shaila, can you give an injection, take blood, or a surgery? So the Gemara says, we have to reach Kamocha, and the father wants that, you're allowed to do it. That's a sugya in Sanhedrin. Also a place that needs chizik, because a bocha is a big Hamidis, but at home, he's too busy for his parents. So the Torah chose very well where the sugya of Ahavas Yisrael is all about. With the Rashi B'cha, with the wife, with children, with parents. So the Ma'ayin Chazir what we have, that the Kula Alma after Kamocha is one of the Taryag Mitzvahs, Davos Sereden. It's the Kol Torah Kula. What does it mean? So I think the most positive shot is an attitude. You like when people are nice to you, do it to them. Maybe what you're mechuyev to do. We did see the pshat of the Rishonim that's going on Shlili, on Zehirus, on the Surah. We also saw it going on in Isha, and there's some Soifis, Novel pshat, Torah. There's no din of Chayech HaKoyim. Now let's apply this Lamaisa. So let's talk about a simple shayla. So two people are alone on a desert island, and Reuven has a gezayis of matzah, and Shimon has nothing. Can Reuven be a nice guy and give up half to his friend, or give up the whole thing to his friend? So half doesn't make sense. Can he give the whole gezayis to his friend? And he wants to tap into V'Hafreach Kamocha, Chas v'Sholem. Zok Moshe in that same tshuva, if he does that, he's mevatel a mitzvah of matzah. Because if it's your matzah, there's no din of Hafreach Kamocha, because Chayech HaKoyim. That's possible. Then I found a much earlier source, that's Pharisee Cyril and Brachas Perik Dalet. He's talking about davening for Yenim. He says, when it comes to Ruchnius, about you have to daven for Yenim and think of Yenim. When it comes to Ruchnius, Chayech HaKoyim is declined. We once had the Shaila, interesting, can't believe but it happened. Someone was walking in our neighborhood, and it was right before Yom Kippur, and there was a kaparis, and they're making Kisi Adam. And he said, oh, I never did Kisi Adam. And look, they're making a shechita. So he grabs a handful of dirt, whatever he did, and as soon as the sheikh rejected it, he threw it on the blood, and it became a mitzvah. And the sheikh started yelling, and the owner of the chicken started yelling, what are you doing? I bought this chicken, I want to make his down, you stole my mitzvah. He says, Chayech HaKoyim. So if you got to go on Chulin, it's a Mechaben Choyshim Mishpat. If someone steals someone else's mitzvah, Taka Kisi Adam, you have to pay money. If someone steals someone's aliyah, you have to pay money. So that's wrongly applying Chayech HaKoyim. Chayech HaKoyim means when you have something, or it's a free-for-all, then you could get it. But a Vada has to show to take it. Now, but I said this for a reason. There's a beautiful tshuva which has to be mentioned. Rav Osman Chelik Yud Aleph, Simon Shin Beis. Someone asked him a very tmimistic shayla. I guess he lives in the world that we live in, and everything is the main word today is not what you know, it's who you know. So he says, what is this the halacha about protectia? He writes it out Lashon Kodesh. Protectia, I don't know where the word came from. In English, it's called pull. But when you use protectia to get what you want, what's the halacha? So Rav Osner writes him back, what you said is not right. Because protexia is not al pi Torah. He said, if someone has the rights to a doctor, and you take away that right, that's an avla. That's not Chayech HaKoyim. The fellow thought, he was matzi in the shayla, that if Lamaisa, I need a doctor, to see a doctor. But I'm going to get the next appointment in 6 months from now. But I get my protexia, and I'll get the appointment tomorrow. Now what happened? The doctor's not going on vacation? No. They push someone off, cancellation. So that's not Chayech HaKoyim. That's a Safek Pekuach Nefesh. If you're pushing off Yenim, so maybe he needs a doctor, and that's Mamash Pekuach Nefesh for him. And even if not, if that's his right, you can take his right. And he says protectia, when it's doicha someone else, is not al pi Torah.
You have to know for sure.
Whatever it is, he says if you use Pekuach Nefesh to him, it's not efshel. I saw this in a very chashuv sefer, one of the Fray Mordechai when the brother of Osman, very much Osman, he learned by Rav Shach. He said Rav Shach, when he was much younger, was in the hospital, and he wasn't well known then, but Tamid knew he was the Gadol. So he went to the doctor, and they whispered to the doctor, you know, he had a very VIP patient. Rav Shach called and said, "What did you tell the doctor?" He said, "Well, he wanted to tell me the Rashiva." He goes, a couple of care that you're taking from Yenim, I'm being over on the Lachsan, on my Chol Damidach Samutay, go right back and tell the doctor nothing more on the expense of someone else. That's my causes. There's a tshuva say from Mikachi Hashem, the Weizen Rav, the Rav in Chicago. He was the unofficial Rav in the concentration camps. If you want to be proud to be a Yid, learn that sefer. Child that were asking gates Hamoed, mamish, people were staring them al in the face, one after the other, mamish. It brings out the yoifi of Klal Yisrael. But in the Akdama he writes with the name who it was. There was a fellow who smuggled money into the camps, and he asked the Weizen of a Shaila. There's going to be a selectia, they called it, and they had to chase out a few hundred children. Chase out meaning kill them on the spot, come on, because a new transport's coming. He says, my child is emaciated, he's weak, he's sickly, he's not going to make it. He's zecher going to be on that transport, out. But if I bribe the guard for the right price, he'll do it, he'll save my child. But there's a minimum amount of children have to be, and if my child is taken out, someone else will go. Can I do it at the expense of another child? So the Weitzrab said, this is Pikuach Nefesh, this you need a bezin of Einat, I can't pass it. He goes, Rebbe, if you don't tell me it's right, I'm not going to do it. He goes, I can't. He said, I can't do it. I can't tell you. I have to pass it. You need Yishva Das. He says, Rebbe, if you don't tell me it's Glat, I'm not doing it. The next day he said, I made my own Akedas Yitzchak, he said. I could have saved my son, and now my son is Be'olam HaEmes because it wasn't 100% Glat. That's my chazir dam. Even though the ma'ashi might say it's someone else, all the lumps you want to say, but protexi is not as partial as it is. If it's at the expense of someone else, that means you're being doich with someone else. And, a more practical shayla. Someone's waiting online, and someone else comes and cuts the line. Where do you go? What about it? Chayecha koidmin. Akruma chayecha koidmin. That's not chayecha koidmin. Another mashal I'll give you, the Rebbeinu and Chayshim Mishpat, Chazei the Simon Amagimel, Gam Shlomo becomes the same thing. That the issa of mazik, besides of course the issa al Geneva, al Tashchis, or Hashem Saveda, but they all say the issa of mazik is the raisa of the Lachsani L'Chavach Lo'isabit. V'ivai, that's the pasuk shot of the pasuk. Zok the Rebbeinu and the Yamsha Shloima, that mazik, even the Adas L'Shalem, no one wants to be paid for damage, they don't want damage. So they're learning up the Chayshim Mishpat Sugya is because of the Issa of the Allah Sani, which is Abbas Yisrael. A question in the camp and the yeshiva, there's always a bacha that wakes up early, and the alarm goes off, and wakes up all the roommates. I've seen this, I've experienced. Usually you get these supersonic boom, alarm clocks, wakes up the whole yeshiva except for the bacha that's supposed to get up early. That's the Metzias. But anyway, Lo Yitzah works. So Lemaisa is Gezel Shena. Gezel Shena, they say whether it's after Kamocha or whatever it is, but it's not pleasant. So Shlomo Zalman Alicha Shloim and Tefillah Kuf Ayin Aleph, he says that's totally in the derech. If a bacha wakes up early in the morning, it's not the derech to wake up in the yeshiva, then he can't do it. So I used to think we should get a room of the early birds, but the problem with the yeshiva is not too many early birds. So it'd be a very unpopulated room. But if that can work there, that's good. Otherwise, you can't wake up early. Now, if the bacha wakes up for Shacharis, but most people think that's too early, so then either outside and outside, they've got to wake up. But then it's not just, chayecha koitman at the expense of Vienna, which the Zalman held that's wrong. Another shayla, winter and summer. There's always someone that's a shvitzer, he opens the windows, winter and summer. Summer, of course, fakeret, they want to put the extra on, it's not so hot. Is there any klal for this? So this, kayadua, there's a famous psak of Shol Salanter, Chaim Kanievsky in the Shari Amunis, his Pirush on Mishnah is Peya, Perik Dal, Mishnah Aleph. Shol Salanter officially said that based on a Mishnah Peya Ayin Sham, that it's not totally in roiv or miyat, it's totally in the season. During the winter, people are cold, you can't open the window until everybody is masking, even a yachid b'mayich. During the summer, the windows are open, and again, you disregard the Rabbin versus yachid, it's totally in this man. Rab Chaim, in the Sefer, disagrees and brings a Mekoros Ayin Sham, he brings a Mishnah Berurah in Nun Gimel, Sifkat Nun Gimel, that is totally in roiv in all these cases. Rav Vosna has two tshuvas, rather interesting. Everything very methodically, Kederach the Poiskim, and he says, and this is in Chelik Ches in the tshuvas Simon Shin Zayin and Chelik Tes Reish Shadik Ches. He discusses first a fan. You have to realize a fan was before air conditioning, but a fan has a maila that it keeps cool, but the chasar is it's annoying. If you sit under the fan and it's, feel like you're in an airport, it's blowing and blowing, so other people are happy and you're not happy. So he takes the same approach to a fan, and the later true about air conditioning. He says, if it's an habtzah chadosha, let's say the first shul that has air conditioning, and most people, and some people don't want. So to change the norm, you're not allowed to. You follow the norm. It's not totally in winter or summer, it's totally in what's normal. So with the fan, he says the fan became normal. Air conditioning, he says it used to be a psachidish, you have to make sure all of them are maskim, but today an air conditioning is part of the shul. So again, Rabbi Yisrael on this psak is a chiddush. I also saw a very nice Jew in the Mishpah Torah, Chelik Aleph, Pei Tes, he wrote before everybody else, but he also took this approach, it's not totally in season, it's totally in what's expected. If you come to shul, you have to understand that during the summer shuls we have air conditioning. Now some people are sensitive to air conditioning, okay? So find a different shul, let's sit in the back. So Rav Vosna says if you can sit not under the fan and not stare at everybody. But the point is, it seems to be something that you have to understand is basically an opportunity. The famous Ramban, the Haley Ramban I should say, in the Aschanan, Lasisa Yoshev Atoiv. So the Ramban is bothered, the Torah says, so right before that, you have to do all the mitzvahs, Eidaisa, Chukah, Mishpatav, and after all this, Lasisa Yoshev Atoiv Hashem, Man Yitavlach, Uvos Rosh Tesa'oretz. So, Ramban, you told me to do all the mitzvahs. What is this Yashar Toiv? And why there's special schar? Uman Yitavlach Uvosi Rashta Sa'aretz Zok the Ramban. This is a Lashon. This is going on the Flemish Shur Sadin. The Torah can't tell you how to live with your neighbors. The Torah can tell you how to live with air conditioning or fans. But you should do the Flemish Shur Sadin. Why? Because the Barshtan loves when a person goes to Flemish Shur Sadin. And therefore, there's a special schar for the Shadin more than all the mitzvahs. So I would say, if someone is a little uncomfortable, but the tzibah wants the air conditioning, and he muches it, his davening will definitely be niskal more. No doubt about it. Because the Baruch loves such a yashris and such a Shadin. It's always hard to give a concrete rule, because the weather is changing, and it's always hot and cold. But it's not a free-for-all. There's a Torah. There's a chiyuvim, and then with nimishuris ben hadin. Rabbi Moshe in the tshuva was asked a very challenging question, which is negeya. Because Moshe Ebenezer Chelik Beis Siman Aleph. There was a girl waiting for a shidduch, got more wood than a boy, but typically it's usually girls, and nothing's doing. The younger girl wants to go first. Does she have to wait for the sister? So Moshe says it in no uncertain terms. We do not paskin like Lavan, that you're allowed to have a young girl getting married before an older girl. And then he adds a little of a mussar to her, but he says that Lamaisa, sometimes it's the older girl Gaiva, that they want the best, so he was upset on Nafshe. But even without that, he adds, and he says a dava nifla klachayat. He says, let's say I'm matzliach, and someone else who's my age and my capacity is not. And I'm giving him Abbas Nefesh because I'm a Tzich and he's not. Should I withdraw from my job and not do my best because I'm hurting him? We're parallels, we're friends, whatever it may be. So Moshe makes a klal without bringing a raya, mistavra. You can't tell someone not to do what he's allowed to do because he's hurting someone else. And therefore, even if the older girl is trying as hard, it's not her gaiva. But she should give up her future, the younger girl, because of the older one? We don't find such a thing. Now we know stories that Bizarre Meltzer, he didn't take a Stella because his older shvaga didn't have a stella, and his shvig will feel bad. That's the story told. Mechanan came to a city once and he heard that the Rav wasn't happy with the new yeshiva, so right away he moved out. This is a very, very sticky issue because it's involving people and involving feelings. But Rav Moshe, that's the address for this Rav Moshe's Chiddush. If you're doing what you're allowed to do, I'm not encroaching on his job, I'm just doing my best, that shouldn't be a problem. Rav Moshe got a different tshuva. The Chacham Shloim, Rav Shloim Klugot, in Chayshemish, the Tav Chavav, has a shayla where someone needs money desperately for Pekuch Nefesh, let's say today, for surgery. And he knows that if an Adam Gadol will collect for him, he can get a lot of money quickly and he can make the surgery. Adam Gadol says, I'm embarrassed and I don't want to do it. So this Chacham Shloim, come out this same shayla, he says, just like there's a patur of Zokim Eni Lefi Chvoida regarding a Shabbos Haveda, who adin a person that needs money for his own gesund, because in a certain sense, this Chayecha Koiden. Rav Moshe in Yerdei Chelik Dalet, Chelik Beis, Kuf Ayin Dalet Tivkot and Gimel, is very, very unhappy. Mechilus Kvoide Go'ainai, this is wrong. Pekuach Nefesh, there is no Chayecha Koiden, there's no din of you go first and like Gabi Shabbos Aveda. Pekuach Nefesh, everything stops. Somebody has to be a shayla. They're giving around the papers to learn Mishnayos, Zeichen Nishmas, a mace. He wants to know, I have to do it because Chayecha Koiden. So I told him, Eilen Esik in the stars. I don't know what's doing with Shemayim. Do you lose schar when someone else, you learn from someone else? They say, Kena Mitzvah Torah art. Torah is like an or, and you take a candle from a candle, you're just increasing. But I said, your attitude is a little tzarachim, because if there's a chesed in my mason, that's chayecha koiden, to do a chesed. Chesed also costs time and effort. It's not a question of me, my learning, or that person learning. It's the neshama needs it. So again, probably, the Baruch Shalom B'layit Neshuldik, if a person does a mitzvah, he doesn't lose. The famous marriage we always quote in Devarim Dalet Hey, Omar Kadosh Baruch Hu Shimuli She'ein Adam She'mei Li U'Mafsid. You never lose by doing the Ratzon Hashem. The Minig Yisrael for Doirei, we learn Mishnayos Zeichen Nishmas the Mace, probably or almost certainly you don't lose. But the attitude that a person is only me, is guided by Anoichi, is not a right attitude. Let me tell you an interesting shayla or shaylas. Let's say there's a mitzvah. Let's say 2 moelim know of a father had a baby, and he needs a moel, and the father's not decided which moel to take. Can one moel do some extra visiting and check the baby? I know you're not taking. I'm going to help you just in case you need me. Can a person be overly aggressive to get something that someone else is competing for? Again, as we always say, we have a Torah Shlema and everything is there. There are at least 2 Mekayros in Tanakh about this shayla. Not being doicha someone else, because that already is my chazes. But to be a little aggressive when something is hefka, can I be zoicha to it? The makar of this is Tak Hilchas Pesach, the Shari Tshuva and Hilchas Pesach, Tov Pei Beis, Sif Cotton Beis. He starts with the following shayla. 2 people are in a jail or in a mikvah, and there's only 1 kazayis matzah available. Now, let me be very clear. He's not talking about that Reuben has a kazayis and Shimon has nothing, because that's chayecha koden. There's 1 kazayis in Hefka on the ground, or in the Muslim jail. It's in the prisoner's visiting room, and the God says, whoever gets it first gets it. Kol olam b'vad. Can someone be very aggressive to get that matzah? Is that chayecha koden? Is that my chaz? How do you look at this? So Zok Tishari Tshuva, he quotes a Beis Yehuda Hayash, one of the earlier poskim. He says, "Maduch in chaye nefesh, chayecha koden, kolshke in chaye ruchnius." Now that's not a steer to our words, because when someone else has some, you can't steal from him because chayecha koden. But this is hefka. So you want to work hard to make money, you're allowed to do it. So you want to work hard to get a mitzvah. And then he says, it's a Gemara in Bava Metzia, Shalachot koyim shel chalada. Im beiski nefashais, im beiski gufais, kolshke im beiski nefash lachas kam v'cham. As I state in Yehuda Yashasei. And then he adds a davar nifla. He quotes from an earlier sefer on Rus. If you notice, when Boaz approached the Goyel, and told him about the mitzvah, the perspective of being goyel rus, he stressed a lot about she's my avis, my avia, my avis. Why? So he quotes from an earlier source that Bemis, Boaz wanted the greatest chus, but he wasn't first. But he's allowed to do things to bring it to himself. Now he didn't lie. He didn't say she's my avis when she wasn't. She was my avis. You're allowed to accentuate a fact or two to discourage the other person, but it's the other person's decision called kulay. So here we have a makar in Tanakh that to be aggressive. Now it wasn't Genevas das. Genevas das. Rabbi Yoina says it's worse than Geneva. It wasn't Genevas das. He did perfectly honest, but he stressed the point or two to be able to corner it into himself. And then he brings a second raya from Yaakov and Esav with the brachos and the b'chayr. Yaakov did some handling, but l'maisa chaylecha koyim. So again, you have to be careful. You have to know how to draw the line. But no doubt about it, when it's up for grabs, so to speak, in the case of that kazayis of matzah, you do what you can. Now, of course, kol da'ol gvar should not be taken literally. Stop beating up one another. That's not Torah. But when a person is aggressive to get a mitzvah, we have two mekayros in Tanakh that a person could go that extra mile to get the mitzvah. Taka found in the Sefer HaBris, Pertinsky Zechon Lebracha on the Kuf Ayin, he quotes from Sefer I don't have Bris Avos that says a moil is allowed to go to the house where a baby is born and volunteer his services. Not that you're taking me, you're allowed to be aggressive to get a mitzvah because no one else has it yet, even though maybe the father is more anointed to someone else. That's within the confines of Torah HaKadosh. Now, of course, there are Mekayros in Rishonim to this Yisoid, Mekar Chaim, on the Sefer Chassidim, Kuf Nesiv, Oishin Aleph. He stelled through 3 Gemaras, Ayin Sham. But one thing we would say, B'Yirei Lekecha. You have to know how to make a spalt between Erlich Ishtadlus, aggressive Ishtadlus, or Avlus. Again, protectia could be that Avla that people don't realize. I had this shaila recently. Someone told me, I think an involved because it's a sticky shaila, but there was a social club, quote unquote. It used to be a shul. I think it's more of it's a shul social club that's more social club than shul. And they have a kosher sefer Torah. That's mamish munach b'v'zoyin. They play bingo. They have taruvos. So this I found in earlier poskim that stelz through what I mentioned, that sefer Chassidim, but it's really that's the Kanim, Balitois and Parshas Tolis, Chof Hey Lamed Beis. Why was Yaakov allowed to get the b'chayra from Esav? Because Vayiv Esav as a b'chayra. And when Yaakov Avinu took the b'chayra, it was a geder of Pidyon Shvuyim. It was a Davar Shebekadusha that had been held captive by Esav Arasha. So it was a geder of Pidyon Shvuyim, and you're allowed to do it. And I found Poiskim, Heintige Poiskim as well, that have this type of shaila. There's a shul that never went from bad to worse, and now the whole shul is one conservative Makam Tiflis, and the kosher sefer Torah. So, the price they want is unreasonable. Whatever you could do to make that pidyon shvuyim would be mutter based on this. Someone told me the shayla that he wanted a top quality esrog, but he's only a younger man. So he went to the soich and says, I'm buying an esrog for one of my rebbeim, very chashuv. Oh, let me show you the good stuff. And he showed him the good stuff, and he bought a nice one. He paid the right price. That already, I'm not so sure is right, because that's sheker. You say, I'm a big person myself, you can say it. But to go say it's lying if he has exclusive esrogim, so you can't lie for a mitzvah. That's megashek tirchak, the blibes. Someone told me, he once told Bank of Kamenetsky, they had a problem with Purim, his work doesn't give him off. So he says, I'm going to call in sick, and I'll stay home and I won't have to go to work. So Bank says, what? Calling in sick, you're lying? Purim Suda is the Rabbanan, Sheker is the Raisa. Don't forget, Sheker is still the Raisa, even in America. Nothing changed. So to lie, Tominish, but to make a shtadlus.
The Gemara sometimes says that you can say a shmur,
I say
the gadol, so people will listen to it.
You're not taking something away from someone else.
No, not taking it away.
Oh, so that's a sugi of Sheker. That could be. Okay, that's a sugi gedoylev in the floor. You want that for next time? It's fine, but not now. This is we're talking about someone that was Genevas Das and took something that's not right. He wouldn't sell to this younger man. But that's you're right. You're allowed to do a lot of things. You're allowed to say it's late. You're allowed to change the clock in your house. I'm not giving you good ideas.
But he thinks the Yugaman is a nobody. But maybe the Yugaman is not a nobody, and maybe it would.
Okay, I think the younger man, if he thinks he's a somebody, he needs.
No, but maybe the Yugaman is
probably a nobody. Okay.
No, not that he thinks he's.
Yeah, let me finish. Okay. Now, in Yonah Diyayma, and let me start showing you, what does mean yenim. Let's say someone has enough ner oil for 8 days of Hanukkah, and l'Rosh and Kol, his friend has nothing. So what would you say? Should he give his friend, and he won't have mahajin? My mahajin or yenim's mitzvah? So you'll say, well, what do you mean chayach ha'kayven? I want to do mahajin. But the Magen Avram nicht so. So the Magen Avram Tafresh Ayin Aleph, he's got an Aleph. If he has shemen betzumtzum, and the chaveri has nothing, he's mechuyev to give yenim and not have, if it comes to it, not have mahajin. Now, Pashat you'll learn if you want to be a lamd. That's not a kasha, because the aside of Ner Chanukah is pursuing Nisa. If I make my ganze with the hahidr, that's one pursuing Nisa. If my friend lied, it's another menorah in the world. There's more pursuing Nisa bar Yayla. And Tak I saw the Chutshanim in Israel says the Svara, but that's not the Pshat the Magen Avram Zok in Israel. Because another Magen Avram that says Beferish in Tafresh Nun Ches, quoting a Matei Moshe, if someone has an esrig miyuchid, a gorgeous esrig, but there's another city that has nothing, but his city where he lived there is an esrig, so theoretically he could bench the shul's esrig on the shul's esrig like Eden did for Doiris, give his esrig to the other city, they'll have, and he'll have the kaholisha esrig. Zok the Magen Avram, you mechuyev to give it to the other city. Esrig miyuchid chayecha koydin. Is part of Chayecha Kaidin. If you can enable a city to have an esrig, that goes before your hidden. The Minchas Elazar, it's kedai to see it inside. In Chelik Beis Lamed Ches, he says if you have 2 kazeisim on the first night, and someone has nothing, and you want one for tonight and one for tomorrow night, and he has nothing, give him the second kazayis. Right now, we both are mechuyev. There's a bit of arvus. And this, you can go back and forth a little bit. There's a early tshuva of Machne Chaim, Siman Aleph, Siman Chav Tes. It's a beautiful tshuva of the B'tzei Lachoch, Mem Gimel, this very shaila. But Azoi Vait, what's yours, rightfully yours, you have to give up if someone has nothing. That's part of Chayecha Koyin. Versteht sich, this is a sugi for itself, but when someone has a yard site and someone else has a yard site, it's a very challenging question, because David for the Yaman on the yard side of a parent is presumably a mitzvah deraisa of mechabdei b'moisei. But as the poskim will say, that if it comes to the machloikis, the biggest chus for the neshama is not to make machloikis. The lashon the kavachaim and gimel sitkot tzadik vav. Sometimes giving up the amid or giving up the aliyah or giving up the skula for someone else is the biggest chus for the neshama. The Torah's chaim soif and gimel sitkot yud aleph. But to do a mitzvah that causes a machloikis is not the Ratzon Hashem. That's, he says, Kol Torah Kula was given, Al Darkei Shalom. So, Tein L'chacham V'yech Gemoed. I'm going to leave with one more shaila. I can say, Achroin, Chaviv or Achroin Hichtid. And that is the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam shaila. Can I, quote, change Drapa Chavrusa when it's not going well? Can I stop going to the Rav Shir because I can do better on my own? These type of shailas, how do we look at it? So, the Maisa, Leutich Sam Soifa, it's simple. There's no Chayecha Koiden. Darf trachten for Yenem. And Aseke Chach Masecha, versteht sich. But you would think, according to Rav Moshe, according to Rav Moshe, it's me. This does it. Rav Moshe, in that same tshuva, Rav Moshe writes that Lamaisa, even though Chayecha Koiden, but we darf trachten for Yenem. And Rav Moshe writes it as clear as can be. He thinks that's the pshat in Rav Preda, that learned with the Talmud 400 times.
Right,
they couldn't afford a tutor. So, okay, Moshe, I believe there's a chiyuv to give Maisa of your time. Moshe writes this in the Tshuva, and we'll soon see in the Dibros as well. You're chiyuv to give Maisa of your time. And Rav Moshe's idea is a novel idea. Rav Zalman and the Cheshleim is at the exact same side. I remember when Rav Moshe's Tshuva was printed, I told Rav Yakov Kamenetsky, he says, he very much agreed to it. But Rav Moshe in the Dibros, in Kedushin, Siman Nun Tzidkot and Tes, again he says the concept of Tarfa of Preda and Maisa. He says he thinks this is Shani Marba Matzia. If you're going to keep to the letter of the law, it'll be Niskayim and you. And Ramesha Mamish goes stark that the only way to Matzliach in learning is if you're giving other people. And Ramesha says you won't lose, you're going to gain. He quotes the famous Gemara in Brachis, Mishtameres, and I would add, the Shalmi says a different word, Mizbareches, and Rav Moshe ends it emphatically, you have to give of yourself for Yenim. And Rav Moshe, who was able to know, was not Doirish, not Makayim, a person that is every second, not a minute, every second was precious. He gave freely of himself, ba'oifen pela ma'oid. And Reuven, as long as I remember Moshe Levi, Reuven said, my father didn't jalab a second of his own time. Of a Vayeda Nudnik, he said, he had all the time in the world. It's a tremendous balance that you have to have. But there's a chachma, there's a svara to this, there's a lomdus to this, if I can say that word. Rav Shimon in the Akdama to Shara Yosha, Rav Shimon says, what's like an aser to aser? And the famous Gemara, aser b'shvil shet is aser. What is it? Just a schar? So Rav Shimon says, no. It's more posh than a schar. If I have a worker and I entrust him with a small part of my business, and he's doing well, so I increase his job, right? He's trustworthy. Everything we have in this world is a gift. Money, chokhmah. If you are a faithful gizba to Bar Yolam and you're doing your job properly and you're sharing with others, I can trust you. So I'll give you a little more money. You're a good worker. You're not selfish. Aser to aser, Shad is the person sees I can trust you with the pikad that I gave you. The more you give, the more you get. It's pashit, more than pashit. But maybe it's more of a din in Torah. The Medrash in Bahar Lamed Dalet, Ois Dalet, takes the pasuk in Mishlei, Asher v'Rosh nivgeshu, Oise kulam Hashem. I like the Medrash clear. Asher v'Rosh, rich and poor, met, the Moshe made them all. This is what I'm telling you now is the Lashon of the Medrash. I'm saying it in English to make it easier. What does it mean? Asher b'Torah and Rosh b'Torah meet. And the Oni bets from the Rosh, please help me. And he helps him. The Rosh, the Oisher, will become a bigger Oisher. But Meir and Yeshnei Shneim, you'll both have Atzlach. But this is Lashon of the Medrash. But let's say he says, I should help you, you're learning brachis, and I'm learning kachim. I guess they had brisk in those days also. He said, I can't do it, I'm too busy. So I'm going to make the Ani into an Asher. And you, Asher, you're going to lose. Why? Oysa kulam Hashem. What's that? It's verb shooter. We see there's an Ani and an Asher, and as an Asher, I have to never help Aniyim. That's better. Why should I suffer? I have to suffer, I'll do it. The Gemara says in Baba Baskel, the Gemara, why the Baruch not make Aniyim? That we should be Zaycha to Gan Eden. The Ani is suffering because of the Asher. I have to be a ticket to Gan Eden. The Baruch made a Shidduch. A big Kamocha and Hamoed. If they work together, Oisikulam Hashem, he's a faithful Gizber, and he's just my vehicle of bringing out the best of the Aisha. So he did his job, and he did his job, they'll both be good. But if you're keeping it for yourself, you don't believe in Siyat Nishma, you think I need Avsiyoid, let's see how much you can do on your own. It's not just a chesed, it's the Yisoid of Torah is a matana. And you have Chachma to give others. That's Torah's chesed al Shayna. So that's why it's not just that the Baruch will help the Ani. The Baruch says, Asher, you're not a faithful Gizbar. And that's why Moshe, although he held Chayecha Koidman, but in Torah, he saw it's different. And it's so meduik in the Chasam Sofer. By regular mitzvahs, it's still Chayecha Koidman. He says it over and over. By Torah is a din in Torah, you have to help others. And that's why, Lamaisa, you have to realize, each shaila is different. Dropping a chavrusa, it could be b'koch nefesh for a chavrusa. Especially Bilas Man, you bet it's a psul gavra, shenemo psul gavra. You're invalidating him. But I'm in the field. I asked for Pam more than once. People ask me what to do. He said, the maisa chayecha koyim. But if there's any tzad that by sticking it out, it will work, So he said, Yechoyle Sheitarachem, the schus of Torah will be there for you, Torah's chesed, try to work it out. But if it comes l'maisa, then mamish, you're not learning an Isachas. I would add, just make it more practical. If you give the Chabus and ultimatum, so listen, the reason why you're not learning is not because he has a shvach cup, because those people usually work hard. He comes late, leaves early, so you give an ultimatum. So they know this is not like Vadera. If you don't work hard, we're not going to learn. So then you dafsar and nafshe. But b'derech klal, if there's any chance that it's going to work out, you'll rely on the schus of Torah. The other shaila is obviously a much shverer shaila. For a person that has a steady by a certain Rav and he stops going, what's he saying? Rav, you're getting older, have a nice retirement, but I'm not part of it anymore. It's a very, very devastating message. Le'idav gisa, if a person feels he can't do it, so you have to really, the best thing is to ask a she'elas chacham. I once ran to about a certain child and I said, should do a cloud? He goes, yeah. What's the cloud? The gerste class of wissen stocken cloud. That was his eternal message. In these shilas, there's no cloud. But if a person feels he can't go on, I think he could maybe write a note, or send a gift, or Rabbi, my schedule changed. I want to give you this gift. It was so precious all my years with you. Now I have a different schedule. Explain why you can't do it. Not that it's something wrong with him, it's something wrong with your schedule. But the Yisrael Adavar is where we began. We have to Hamoed Zev Klal Gadol b'Torah, and it's dafka by Torah. Abolatai Messiah, and Yom Tov to you. Yes.
Shei Bega Shei would like to give a big yashikoyah to our especially to the Valdi this year. I'd also like to give a big yashikoyah to today's sponsor, Rabbi Yakov Zev from AB Plumbing, the sponsor of today's year. Yashikoyah. Tomorrow's Rabbi Feldman.